Can't you say I'm trying to make a video, Brian?
I'm sorry.
Auto Better Garage back today. We got a 2004 F-250, and she's a big one. Got these nice 38s on it. Truck actually drives really good to be lifted like it is. So this is a friend of mine who also works on pretty much exclusively nothing but 6.0s. He doesn't have a 10,000 pound lift to get this monstrosity up in the air to do a flex plate on it. So we're going to show you the noise it's making real quick. It obviously has a brand new starter on it. I think we're at the very beginning of the flex plate going bad. We're not to the extreme of the squeaking and the rattling and all that stuff that you get to with it. So anyways, we're just going to show you how simple it is to do a flex plate. Well, I say how simple it is. Brian might be disagreeing with that a little bit. So let me let you hear what it sounds like before we do anything here. All right, Brian, he's got our rear drive shaft out. He's taking the front out. I have pulled, where's that? Right here. Your cable actuator here for the transmission, which just has this nice little slider right here. You pop the tab up, slide it up, don't get rough with it. This will break easy. 2 13s hold it to the side of the transmission, and that's off. I'm probably gonna start working on our torque converter, bolts. Got your access right there. Brian's gonna keep working on getting other stuff loose on that. We'll catch up with you on the next step. All right, transmission line's off to 18 millimeter. Sorry, 19 millimeter. You're gonna have the issue if you got bigger exhaust of hitting the exhaust right here, but we got it loose. When we pull the transmission back, we'll have a little more clearance room to get that out of there. Wiggle it out. You got a 10 millimeter here for your wire harness where it goes into the transmission. Wire loom tucks into the cross member here with 2 hold downs. Granted that they're not broke off like that one just fell off. 2 plugs on your actuator. You got another plug right up here on the transmission. You got a hold down here that has all your wiring loose then. Starter was, what are those, 14s?
13.
13s, 3 13 millimeters on the starter. Disconnect your batteries, of course, before you go to pulling that off, unless you like having a light spark show down here. Is that it? Is that where we're at so far?
Yeah.
I think that's it. I'm getting ready to undo the torque converter bolts, or Brian is. I'm gonna turn the motor up there at the top. I'll show you how I'm doing that. And then we're gonna hold a flex plate through here so that it doesn't try to turn while he breaks it loose. So let me get started on that and we'll show you how we're doing that. All right, so we got Lee up top turning the alternator clockwise. Brian's feeling for when the bolt comes around, or the nut comes around rather. He's gonna line it up.
All right, stop.
You got limited amount of room, so we're using a 14 standard depth with a breaker bar. And then I take the pry bar up here and I grab a tooth on the flywheel.
Good.
And hold. Yeah, go ahead. You get it?
Yeah.
All right, he's got it loose. They're not super duper tight. And you back your nut off. And there's 6 of those holding the flywheel on, flex plate on. There's people ready to correct that too. All right, so to get your dipstick out, you gotta get that 10 millimeter nut off. Bear with me with the camera shaking. Right here. All right, so remove that nut and you can wiggle your dipstick up and off, and then you can work it out of the transmission down there. All right, we got all the bell housing bolts out except for this one and the corresponding one on the passenger side, because we're laying on the floor now, because we're getting ready to take the transmission jack and support this. All right, all of our cross member bolts are out on this side. We got 1 left on this side. That's what's supporting the transmission on the back. So we're gonna get it supported with the transmission jack and then take the cross member out, take those 2 bell housing bolts out, and then we can walk this whole thing back, and then we can get into doing the flywheel. All right, cross members out. Last 2 bell housing bolts are out. All the weight's on the transmission jack. And I just thought of something else. Stand by. So here was the afterthought. Just a minute ago, I wasn't thinking. You got to support the motor because it's going to try to tilt down. It'll make lining all this back up easier. So we got all that supported up. Not putting pressure on the drain plug, but on each side of the pan, which should be just fine. So now we're going to slide this transmission back, get it all freed up. Our transmission slid back, what was that, about 6 inches? Enough for Brian to get a breaker bar and a ratchet in there. He's breaking the Flexplate bolts loose while I am holding the belt on the alternator here to keep the motor from spinning. All right, go ahead, Brian. That way he can break the bolts loose, otherwise it's just trying to spin the motor. This is just enough to keep that from happening. So what I didn't show earlier was that, I mean, we didn't have a whole lot of options for using the transmission jack. I didn't want to bust the transfer case loose and create more work. So it was trying to teeter a good bit because that's heavier than you think it is. So we put blocks on the other floor jack, ratchet strapped all that together to the floor jack. And that gave us the ability to roll it back this far here. So he's finishing up pulling those out. We're gonna pull this flex plate up. So we're sitting here studying the two. I don't see anything majorly wrong with it. It's not cracked. Just ever so slight deformity when you look down at the mating surface. And what Brian was pointing out, which ones were they again? I turned it a little bit now. There's a couple teeth in a row. They don't look terrible, but they are worn, especially when you look at the new ones here. Look way meatier. And that is a new starter. It's a new 6.4 starter that Lance put on it. So anyways, we're gonna get this put on and we'll go from there. All right, Brian's gonna start torquing. I'm gonna go up top and hold again. When you put your flex plate bolts in, you have to Loctite them. 44 and then 69. And I will post the torque sequence right here. So I'm gonna get up top, hold it, he's gonna torque, and then we'll be ready to make the transmission back up. So what are we struggling with, Brian?
Getting the torque converter bolt lined up with the flywheel.
And why is this?
Because there's no damn inspection plate.
There's no. So some of these have this hole cut out, which would be very convenient right now for seeing the torque converter bolt for lining it up. So what Brian just had a fantastic idea. We stuck a short bolt through here, butted it up to the torque converter bolt so that we could see that it had a straight shot. So now we're gonna try to mate it back up again. Hopefully it's gonna fall right in the hole, and we'll go from there. All right, so that method worked fantastic. Bolt lined right up, went right on the dowel pin on this side. We got one bolt started finger tight, wiggled the transmission around, got it right on the dowel pin on the other side. Brian's getting ready to start all the torque converter nuts back. We're gonna throw our cross member back in, then we can raise this up and stand on our 2 feet and finish all this up. We got everything on. Just tightened all the bell housing bolts up. Cross member is in and tightened up. I gotta, did you already do all the electrical connectors? Yeah, you already did all that, they're done. I'm going to climb up top, turn the motor over. He's going to snug all the torque converter bolts up one at a time, just snug, and then we're going to go back around and torque all of them. Well, what is it, 37 foot-pounds? 36 foot-pounds for the torque converter. And then, yeah, I got to make sure the linkage is correct up there with the indicator and all that stuff still. And then, yeah, we'll be pretty much done other than starter. All right, we are all in, starter's in. Everything's tightened up, linkage is back in. Torque converter bolts are torqued. Brian's working on tightening the drive shaft up. What goes on these bolts back here, Brian?
Loctite.
Loctite goes on these bolts back here. We had a little bit of an issue with the carrier drop bracket this has on it. The clip nut was bent. Straighten that up. So you got these left, front drive shaft, and I got to tighten up the dipstick nut up there that I showed y'all taking off on the valve cover. And we got this lick. All right, all together, we're gonna give her a try. If Brian can reach the key. Can you not squeeze in there? Chest too thick? Sounds nice and smooth. Sounds like it needs a fickum, I think. One more time. I like it. It's a good looking truck. All right, guys, it's Automatic Garage signing out. Hope y'all enjoyed the video. I'm putting a flex plate on this 6.0 here, getting rid of that terrible starting sound that it has on here. As you can see, the teeth didn't look terrible, but it was enough to cause an issue. That was a brand new 6.4 starter on here, which the other mechanic buddy of mine had ruled out that's what it was. His lift wouldn't pick the truck up, so he sent it over to me. Anyways, check out our other videos. A lot of 6.0, 7.3, 6.7, a whole lot of Ford content on the channel. We throw some Cummins in here on occasion. So y'all check out other content and stick on with us. We'll holler at y'all later.